I have one question that I really want to ask.
Okay.
So, where were you when you were our age, about like 15 or 16, like in your life? What were you doing?
I was, when I was 15. So my dad had just gotten a divorce, and he had been in jail for 8 months before that. So he had just gotten out of jail, and me and my sister were living. I have a sister that's 11 months younger than me, so I was 15, she was 14. And we're moving from kind of house to house. So at the time that I turned 15, I actually wanted to work because I needed to make money so I could have money to buy like clothes.
That's what I want to do too.
So I got a summer job at Raging Waters because we lived in East Side. That's where I grew up in East Side. So I was like, oh no!
And then everything goes flying away.
Oh no! Here, do you want to hold?
Yeah, I got it.
Do you want to put something on top of that?
Sure, we'll just do that.
All right. Only to me. This happened.
So yeah, I think actually that was the year that you're 15, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So I just finished my sophomore year. I started working at the end of that in the summer at Raging Waters. And I actually didn't do very well in school. So I was always a straight A student. I went to Leland High School. So that was the first year for us that we had desegregation in San Jose Unified School District. So I was living on Santa Clara Street, but we were being bused all the way to South San Jose. Yeah. And I played basketball for the high school, so I was like, that was a really weird year because I hadn't really figured out how they were going to do all of those things. Mm-hmm. And so I remember like my first practice, they didn't think about like kids that were going to play after school sports. So they had to like hire me a taxi, and the taxi would come and pick me up after practice every night and then drive me, home, and then I would take the bus in the morning. And then I met a girlfriend on the basketball team I would go to her house between school letting out and then our practice starting because we always had like an hour and a half break between. So it was kind of a crazy year. So I moved schools my sophomore year and went to YB. And then at the end of YB...
Oh, Verba Buena.
Yeah, Verba Buena, high school. And then after that year, over the summer, I moved schools again and went to Overfelt. And that's where I ended up graduating from high school. But again, like I think because of the age I was at and what was going on with my family situation, like I went from being a straight A student to like barely passing because I would cut class all the time. And I was college, bound. So I was taking Algebra 2 and doing all of those. Like my English class was nothing but seniors and juniors, all the football players. And I just didn't really care. I kind of just gave up and then kind of got my stuff together when I started my junior year when I changed schools again. Because I realized like I was the only one that was going to be able to change it. My dad wasn't going to be able to help me, and no one else was going to do my homework for me. So that year is when I had to like turn it around because I wanted to go to college. That was my big thing. So I did it, but it was brutal because I worked. I was cheerleading. I was a student body secretary.
Yeah, like the perfect high school student lifestyle.
Yeah, it was crazy. I had a really good boyfriend at the time who I later married, who's now my husband.
That's so cute!
But he was a year older than me. We went to different high schools. So he was like my chauffeur, right? Because he was a year older than me, so he graduated a year before I did. But I applied to 4 colleges, Berkeley, San Jose State, San Jose State, Sacramento State, UC Davis, and that was it, those 4, and I got into all of them. Ooh. Which was crazy because my grade point average wasn't that great because of that sophomore year that I screwed around. But I got an interview at Cal, which was crazy that like no one had ever heard of that. It was very, very weird. But I ended up going to Davis. That was my decision to go there. Looking back on it, I wish I'd gone to Cal. I wish I would have chosen to go there instead. Yeah. But Davis was a great school, and, it was a really cute little town, college, like what you envision, what you see in the movies, all these little towns circled around the college. That's how UC Davis was. It's not like what you see today. There's a lot more industry and commercialism now than there ever was when I was going there. So I was still kind of like trying to figure myself out, and I knew I was kind of on a bad road at your guys' age, and I knew I had to bring it back on track.
Did you know what you wanted to do in life, like as far as career at your age?
No. So I knew that I was going to get screwed if I tried to apply to because when I was in middle school, I was sort of in the, I don't know if they have it anymore. In my time, it was called MESA, which stood for Mathematics, Engineering, and Science Achievement. So again, I was always that, smart kind of I guess I was kind of a nerd girl, but not really. But I was just really smart. I really liked math and science. And so I always knew I was going to go to college. I just never knew what I was really going to study. And because I screwed up my sophomore year, I knew that when I applied to college, like Cal and UC Davis, like the harder ones, that it would be better for me to go in undeclared and not declare a major. So that's what I did. So I went undeclared for a long time. I don't think I declared my major until I was a junior in college.
Oh, wow.
So
That's
I didn't really
late.
know. Yeah, it was really, really late. Because you have to get, like, your first 2 years, everybody has to do their GEs, your general education credits. So that gave me enough time. So I took a bunch of different classes. I did, like, women's studies and Chicano studies, sociology, economics, poli-sci. Like, you kind of take a bunch of different things to sort of figure out what I wanted to do. And then I decided I wanted to be an English major because I wanted to be a professor. That was kind of my dream when I finally got to college. And then I got into grad school, and I was like, oh, this is like 4 more years of college and like $50,000. And I said, oh, I'm going to take a break and start working. And then I don't know.
What'd you end up majoring in?
I ended up majoring in Chicano studies, which is crazy because what I do for my job has nothing to do with what I majored in.
What is Chicano?
Chicano studies is like Mexican-American studies.
Oh, okay, that's what
In my time, it was like, it was a very big thing. Like, they didn't really have that. They had African-American studies, Native American studies, Chicano studies. So Chicano studies was an interdisciplinary major. So what that meant was we had to take classes from a lot of different disciplines. So, like, sociology was part of our requirements to get the major. Econ was part of the requirements to get the major. You had to do another ethnic studies course. So I actually applied to grad school. I applied to University of Arizona at Tucson because they had a race and ethnic studies master's program, and they also had a women's studies master's program. And I remember the professor on the admissions committee calling me and saying, I really, really like your portfolio and what you have to offer. And he actually literally said this to me, but my white colleagues are having a difficult time with your overall achievement, your course studies, because I hadn't taken a statistics class, and that was like a minimum required to get into any kind of sociology program. I said, yeah, I know, but I'm taking that over the summer, I'm working, blah, blah, blah. And he's like, okay, well, as soon as you sign up for that class, let me know, because I'm trying to really push for you. I'm working, blah, blah, blah. And he's like, okay, well, as soon as you sign up for that class, let me know, because I'm trying to really push for you. Which was kind of a cool thing, because nowadays, I know, because we recruit people from EA, from colleges, it's really, a lot of it is what you know, yes, but a lot of it is, half of it is who you know. And so I think for me, that was a big thing, having someone fight for me that didn't really know me. But in the end, it ended up, it just wasn't going to work out for me. I really would have, we would have had to move to Arizona and do all that stuff, which would have been fine. So that was kind of a hard lesson for me, because rejection at that level was insane. I probably applied to 10 different programs, and I think I got into 1. So it was super competitive. Yeah, but everything happens for a reason. In the end, I love what I do every day, and I'm really lucky, but my technology work background has nothing to do with what I majored in college. So it kind of I think it's different now. Now that I'm in Silicon Valley, I think it's really different. I noticed that we are very targeted when we recruit people. Even right now, for example, we're hiring on our team for an MBA intern. So all these kids that we're interviewing, I just interviewed 2 people last week that one of them went to Chicago, I think. That I got their MBA from Chicago, and the other one from Missouri. So they're pretty tough programs, and we're interviewing them for jobs to do work with our team on our team. So it's super competitive now. It's nowhere near it wasn't that bad when I was applying to college and looking for a job. So it's really tough. So I have a 16, my daughter's 15, she's going to be 16. I'm really on her all the time about her grades, because it's really going to define where you get to go and what you get to do. And Google's hardcore about who they hire. Facebook is the same way. We're pretty tough because we're looking for a lot of engineers. Now we're kind of moving our focus to digital sales. And we have a new CTO, so he's all about engineering. And most of my career has been working with engineers, so we don't have enough female engineers. That's definitely one gap, a huge gap. So a couple weeks ago, I went to this program. It was these 2 Stanford students. They're juniors, who also started discovering this. And so they did a documentary. It's called She++, and they presented it at, do you guys know about this?
No.
I was trying to take my daughter. I wanted Shannon and all them to go. So effectively what they're saying is by the year 2018, there'll be 1.4 billion jobs in the U.S. for engineers. Only 30% of those jobs will be able to be filled by Americans. Because the problem is that by the time girls get to college, if they're in that, they call it STEM, science, technology, engineering, and mathematics, so sort of like that major or that subject area. So by the time they get there, their girls kind of start self-selecting themselves out. Plus, they're not really encouraged by their professors to continue on the path of science, technology, mathematics. So it's the flip side. So if you go look at like an econ major or a poli-sci major, right, you'll see for every 120 students, 80 of those will be girls, and the 40 of them will be boys. But in engineering and science and math, it's flipped. So you'll have 80 of them being boys and 40 be girls. So I keep pushing my kid too to like, Melina, you really need to think about science and engineering and computer science, because there'll be so many opportunities for jobs that pay really good money, because we just can't find candidates here. So we're hiring people from China, India, because we just can't find them here. We can't find qualified people. So something for you guys to think about if you're totally into math and science.
That's one thing I know I'm interested in, because the whole science and medical thing.
Yeah, so
that's what I am, and I kind of want to be towards that area, like be able to study when I go to college.
You should look them up. So they're doing this thing right now. They're really sweet girls. One was a veterinarian major, a pre-vet major, and the other one was a philosophy or sociology. But now they're both CS majors. So if you go to their site, it's called She++, and you spell out the word plus.com. They actually are doing previews of their documentary. It's a really short documentary. It's like 12 minutes long. So they actually brought it to EA, so we filmed it there. And then we had a panel of female engineers from the industry. So a woman from LinkedIn, Google, Facebook, Yahoo, our director of engineering from EA. And so those girls were there. So what they're doing now is they're pairing up their Stanford students with a high school student to mentor them through their college, their college experiences, and they're actually getting mentors from all over the world. So it's not just like other female, engineering or STEM majors. They're from all over the world, and they're pairing them with high school students. The problem is they're piloting it this year, and I think they have way too many girls than enough mentors to fulfill, to do the matching. But they're piloting it, so they say they want to keep going. So you should look at it because it's really cool. I thought it was really, really interesting.
How are they picking the girls though? Like the high school
I don't know.
kids?
I have no idea. We were asking them that, and they said, "Well, we're just kind of piloting it." And I know the girls are doing Skype. We're doing Skype interviews with your mentors and stuff like that. I thought it's a great idea because I even asked, "What can we do as other females in industry to help support your guys's?" I really think it's a movement, right? So what can we do to try to help? And they're like, go to our website, tell people about our documentary, but I think it needs to be more than that. I think it definitely has to be grassroots, but I also think it needs to be, if we really want to affect change, you have to actually stick your neck out a little bit, right? So, but yeah, I think it's great. I think if you can stick with that and you really, really love it, that would be a really great thing for you. Just in terms of being successful.
I'm looking into being a construction manager.
So project management?
Math.
Yeah.
Math a lot. Not so much science because I'm not that good, but...
Yeah, it can be anything, right? So as long as it's technology based, I think it can be anything. My background is in project management. I think that's been a very portable skill for me. So I've been able to do lots of different jobs. I worked in a subprime lending place when we were in Sacramento, and then I did consulting for IT consulting for Ross Pro's company when we were in Sacramento. Then we moved back here, and I worked for a startup company for 5 years, and they were in Santa Cruz. So again, working with engineers and just kind of organizing everything end to end. And then the engineering VP really liked me, and he left because he went to go start a game startup. So he kept trying to recruit me, and we became really good friends. And I said, well, when you can pay me, then I'll come work for you. But until you can pay me what I'm worth, I'm not coming. So it took him 2 years before he could afford me, and then he pulled me over, and we were doing work for EA at that time. So when they went under, because they didn't last very long, I think I was there for 6 months before they went under. Then EA came in and kind of cherry picked all the people, because we were probably about 60 people in our studio. So they kind of came in and cherry picked all the ones they wanted. And I didn't really want to work there. I was like, no, they grind their people to death. There's no work-life balance. And no. And then he was saying, you're being so stubborn. I said, well, if they call me, I'll talk to them. But I'm not going to go out of my way to be a slave. That's ridiculous. So they did call me, and I interviewed, and I was very blunt and honest about how I felt about the company. And they said, well, would you be willing to come on as a contractor? I said, sure. I said, I think that's perfect, because it gives you an opportunity to see if you like me, and it gives me an opportunity to see if I like your company and your culture. So it worked out. I've been there for 8 years, and so yeah, I guess it was okay after all.
So you still do that?
I work. I've been on a lot of different teams. So I've been there for 8 years. So for me, it feels like I've been in a startup, because every 2 to 3 years I'll change teams. So when I first started, I was working on Godfather. That was the first M-rated video game that EA had ever made. It was also the first open world game that EA had ever made. So it meant if you were walking down the street and you saw a side street, you could actually go down that street and open doors and walk through things. In old video games before that, in non-open world games, you can't really do that. You can go up to a door, but you can't get past that, right? You kind of have to stay on this predetermined path that they put you on. So that was a really fun experience. There were I think at our heaviest, we were almost 215 people on the team. I got to do some voiceover stuff for them, because we have a studio on site, and so I got to do some of that. It was really fun. It was tough. We worked a long time. We worked 14-hour days, 7 days a week for 7 months. So it was insane.
Crazy.
It was insane. Yeah, and so they were bringing in lunch, breakfast, dinner for us every day.
At least they fed you.
They fed us. It was, I don't know. I thought it was so cool. Oh, we have an on-site gym. Oh, we have on-site
You live there?
dry cleaning.
Now I see why they do that.
Totally subversive, I think. But so that I did that for a year, and then I went and worked on the Sims franchise for a year, and I managed artists. That was so much fun. It was really different to go from managing engineers, which I'd done most of my career, to managing artists, because they're so different. They're so emotional and they're so sensitive. Where engineers are they really don't want to talk to you. You really have to sit there and try to pull information out of them. So artists are oh my God, I can have them in my office for hours. I have to okay, we have to move on. We have other things to do today. But that was a really, really fun team and a great franchise, and had their processes down really, really well. So I did that for a year. I went and worked in EAP, because the guy that recruited me to EA, I worked for him on Godfather. He started doing EA Partners. So at that time we had just signed Rock Band.
Ooh, Rock
So I worked
Band's
on the Rock Band business for a little bit. And then I worked on Brutal Legend, which was that silly Jack Black movie with the game. So I worked with a lot of different studios. I traveled a lot for them. I worked on Reckoning, which just launched 2 years ago. They were an open world RPG role-playing game. So we did that. So we were traveling a lot back and forth to Baltimore, because that's where the studio was based. And then I started working with Valve. So I was publishing a lot of our games, EA games, on Valve's digital platform, which is called Steam. So it's all PC-based games. And I made the company a lot of money. That was my own little project. It was really, really fun. I did that for 3 years. And then EA decided they were going to build their own digital platform. So that was in 2010. And the boss, again, that had hired me, that moved me to EAP, decided he was going to go take this job to be the senior vice president. And so he kind of forced me to come with him. So I went with him. And I worked on a bunch of mobile titles. Worked with the Sims franchise, worked on Star Wars. What else? Oh, and then started doing third-party publishing. So THQ games, Saints Row the Third had just come out. We did a bunch of old Capcom stuff. The old Capcom stuff was fun. We did Bastion. We did Super Street Fighter 4. A lot of really cool old games. And then now I'm on a different team that I started last year. And this is probably the hardest job I've had since I've been at EA. And I worked on Medal of Honor. That was just the last game I just shipped. So I lived in LA for a month to help them finish. That was a really, really tough game. And then we just finished supporting SimCity. They just launched in March. And right now I'm working on Madden. So tomorrow I'm flying to Florida to go meet with the team and to Bronx Studios out in Orlando.
This is all within EA, right?
Mm-hmm.
How does this all work with your personal life, your daughter and your husband?
It's hard. I don't really get to see them that much. My husband's kind of like the Mr. Mom. So it works well for them. They're really, really close. And she does softball, so her schedule's pretty insane too. So right now she's playing travel ball, plus she's playing high school ball, plus she's taking all those classes. So she's still a straight A student, because that's my one rule for her in the house is you don't have to work, but you must get straight A's. And the minute your A's start slipping, then something has to go, and probably softball, because that is not a right, it's a privilege. Yeah. So, but she's a really good kid, and she's almost ready to drive. So we bought her a car in November. She has a cute little convertible BMW, but she can't drive it yet. It's not new, it's old. But she's a good girl. She listens to the rules, and but her and her dad are super close. So I remember last summer I went to London, because I had to go support something we were doing out there. So I was there for like a week. And then I came home, and it's an 11-hour flight, so you're exhausted. By the time you land, you've been up since God knows when, the 8-hour time difference, plus the 11-hour flight. So I remember getting home like late on Friday night, and then the next morning I was super tired. So I got up, and they were all gone. So I'm calling them on their cell phones, where'd you guys go? Well, we had to do this, and we have to do that, and I'm like, why did I even come home? I could have stayed in London with my friend and like hung out instead of coming home. So it is hard. I think I'm really lucky because I do have a really supportive husband. Not all jobs at EA are like my job that requires so much travel, but that is definitely one of the things that being in the, I don't know if it's just tech. I think a lot of it is just tech, but for sure at EA, the corporate culture is such that they kind of expect you to give up a lot to get a game shipped out the door. And there's been a lot of people that I've known, a lot of colleagues and friends of mine who, had their marriages break up or have their marriages be sort of on the, because you never see them. You're always working. Plus I'm a workaholic anyway, so that's my own internal battle. Like my husband can really separate work from his personal life. Like he can walk in the door and leave everything at home. I, on the other hand, cannot. So I'm constantly thinking about work. I don't know if that's a female thing. I don't think so. I think it's just a Crystal thing. So it's definitely something you have to be careful for. And it just depends on your personal style, right? So it's all different. Not everyone's like that. My boss is also like me. So she has 3 kids, and she just had a baby who's 6 months old. And she travels, like right now she's in Sweden. So we're all, like most of us are going to be gone this week. Because half of the team is in, they're going to Stockholm, and then they'll go to Guildford, because we have an office just outside of London, and then they'll go home next week. Yeah, so we had a lot of trips last year, a lot of international trips last year.
Free traveling.
Yeah.
It's free? Everything?
Yeah.
Oh, that's lucky.
Yeah.
That's actually good.
It sounds sexier than it is. When you travel a lot, it's like it gets old really, really quickly. The LA trips I didn't mind because they were like day trips. I could go there in the morning and fly home at night. But living there for a month was really tough because my husband and my daughter were up here. We shipped in October. So she had school and practice, and it worked out for us because I had a corporate apartment, and so they would fly in for the weekend. She'd have a tournament. We'd go to the tournament, stay at the apartment, so we'd have to have that extra expense of like a hotel room and all that other stuff. And I had enough points from flying so much that like I think 2 of the 3 trips that they flew out there I covered with all my points, so we didn't have to pay extra for that. But yeah, I think people have like salespeople are road warriors. They constantly travel. It's kind of part of the gig. But in video game development, like depends on the company, depends on your role, right? So I don't mind the travel because at first it's kind of fun, but I think at some point you kind of have to go, okay, I'm not I told myself I wasn't going to travel the month of April, so I didn't go anywhere. So but yeah, it does get old and it gets hard. That work-life balance thing is really, really hard.
Do you see yourself like in a few years doing the same thing, or like?
I haven't decided what I want to do. So since my daughter's going to go to college soon, I've been thinking about going back and getting my MBA. But I mean, I definitely know, like, career-wise, I'd like to be COO. Like, I always say I wanted to be a VP, but I really like operations. So I think being a COO would be really great, and I think we need more female leaders. There's not enough of us at the top. It's way more male-dominated. And I also think that, like, the one thing about me, I think if you walked around EA, there's some very interesting characters, right? Like, some of the guys can, like, roll out of bed and come in what virtually looks like pajamas. And it's no big deal. But I think when you're a management, you have to kind of dress for your job. And so some women I think take that to the extreme where they just wear nothing but pants or pantsuits. But I love being a woman, so I love color and I love makeup and I love accessories. So, and high heels, like I normally wear like 4 or 5 inch heels to work every day. That's just my style, that's just my thing. So sometimes I get a lot of shit for it, but I don't care because I think that, I think our girls need to have a lot of different role models, and I don't think that we need to be emasculated or be like men to be successful female leaders. So I love the way that I am, and I'm not going to change. That's just who I am, and if people don't like it, oh well, that's their problem. So far it hasn't stunted my growth, so I'm okay.
I like that. I like it too.
Yeah, I like that.
Yeah.
That's crazy.
Yeah, it's insane. It's a fun job, though. I think, this is probably the longest I've ever worked at a company. Mm-hmm. My average lifetime is about 3 years because I get bored. So I think with EA, it's felt like a new company every time I've changed positions or roles. So the one positive thing, there are a lot of positive things about working for EA. I have a great boss. I've always had really good champions, and I think that's really the key to success. I wish what I had learned at your age that I learned later in life was to network. Like I took applying to college very seriously.